Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are going to be talking about some new rumors on the Cybertruck. We're also going to be taking a closer look at other automakers' sales in the United States for the third quarter, and quite a few other items as well. All right, looking at the stock to start things off, Tesla with a really nice day today, up 5.9%, closing at $261.16. Also a nice outperformance, although a pretty strong market with the NASDAQ up about 1.33%. All right, so we'll get right into the Cybertruck rumors. So obviously just preface this with these just being rumors, as of course we always would have to when we're talking about rumors, but on a Tesla Twitter space today, or Tesla X space today, there was a person who has claimed that they last night took a test drive of the Tesla Cybertruck, and I do find it to be pretty plausible that this did actually occur based on the information that they shared. So we're going to go through some of the takeaways from sort of the 30 or 40 minute question and answer that this person gave. So we'll just hop right into those. First off, this person has a Model X Plaid. Said that basically the Cybertruck is a Model X Plaid on steroids. They mentioned a number of times how they felt like there wasn't any reason to buy a Model X because the Cybertruck was that good, except obviously if you prefer the looks of the Model X. As comparing the performance to the vehicle that he currently owns, again the Plaid Model X, he said that at a 18% state of charge on their drive with the Cybertruck, that it felt just as fast as a Plaid Model X. He said that this version did have a tri-motor Plaid powertrain in it. So we talked previously about Elon's tweet, or Elon's post about test driving the performance Cybertruck. He did refer to it as performance rather than Plaid, so unclear exactly what that denomination might be when this vehicle does come out, if this is correct. But apparently it does have that same powertrain that the Model S Plaid or the Model X Plaid would have. Mentioned that the front and the tonneau cover, the front and the tonneau cover are powered, so both can be open or closed with the center screen or on the phone, things like that. So nice to see that. He actually tried laying down in the frunk, and it said at 5'7" it fit him laying down. So it doesn't necessarily mean laying completely flat, but if we look at a photo of the Cybertruck frunk, I think people lose a little bit of perspective sometimes, but the Cybertruck is going to be somewhere around 7 feet wide. So if this person is 5'7", it's relatively plausible that this could be basically a person size width that we would be looking at here, compared to, again, the 7-foot-ish width of the vehicle. So I think that's interesting and somewhat plausible. And then the tailgate, unlike the frunk and the tonneau cover, could be remotely opened. So probably from the app or from the center screen, but could not close automatically, so no power to come back up. No pass through to the bed, so not surprising there between the cabin and the bed of the truck. He didn't see anything about the rear cabin glass opening, and I think this has actually been, I think some people got tripped up on this. They asked about it in the Twitter or in the X space, and he didn't go as far as saying that it won't happen, but said that he didn't really see anything about that being able to do that. Obviously, we had seen a previous prototype that it looked like that was the case, so I'm still very hopeful. Obviously, that would allow HVAC to go between the cabin and the bed for things like camping, which would be great. So hopefully we'll see that, but didn't have any information on that at this point. It does have a 240 volt outlet, so that'll be nice for a lot of different applications for people to use that. And said that it might have the ability to do bidirectional charging, but said might in sort of a cheeky tone of voice, implying that it would have that bidirectional charging capability. Again, back to some of the comparisons with the Model X Plaid, he said that it felt just more cushy in general. Mentioned this likely had an air suspension, the vehicle that he was test driving. He said that it does have the ability to obviously raise and lower the air suspension, but rather than just low, medium, or high setting like we have previously seen from Tesla on vehicles, said that there was a little bit more capability to specifically set it at a certain height, and see the example that he used was 14.5 inches. So should have a little bit more granularity there at least, or visibility into what that specific height is, which would be nice, especially, as this is probably something that's going to be more finely tuned in for some use cases like off-roading with the Cybertruck. So people, I think, will like that. On the interior, he said it was very quiet, very plush interior, very well executed. Said that the finish is similar to Model X, so should be a carpeted vehicle similar to Tesla's other vehicles, rather than something a little bit more rugged. The turning radius, he also mentioned, was very similar to his Model X, was very complimentary of that. Said that the four-wheel steering does happen automatically. It's not something that you need to manually engage to be able to utilize. Obviously, the prototype, if we go way back, it did have 6 seats with 3 in the back and then sort of a bench seat style. I think it was a bench seat style, but actually maybe not. But originally there was a version with, the prototype Cybertruck originally had 3 seats in the front as well. But this person says that right now there are no plans for a 6-seat version. So, probably set our hopes aside on that one for at least the time being and possibly for, forever. Couldn't give price or range details, so we'll still have to wait a little bit on that. And then in terms of delivery and when that may occur, it sounds like the delivery event has been scheduled and it's known internally. It's not announced yet, but will be soon. And says delivery may be around November before Christmas. So we'll see on that. At this point, I think that seems pretty plausible. I think there's a lot of hope that it'd be October, but the further that we get into October now, the less likely that becomes. So, obviously we'll keep an eye out for that. All right, moving on from the Cybertruck rumors, which again, just reiterate one final time, all just rumors, no confirmation on that. But we'll get now into some updated sales figures for the US, specifically for automakers for the third quarter. Obviously, we've talked about Tesla's Q3 results. These are not directly comparable. This is just US figures. Tesla releases worldwide figures. US figures are then just left to be estimated by third parties. So those will be included in here. But overall, it looks like a very strong quarter in the United States for vehicle sales. If we scroll down to the bottom here, this is a recap put together by Automotive News. Looks like the total US light vehicle market was about 3.3 million this quarter, which would be up about 18% year over year. And as you can scroll through here, most automakers posting pretty strong results on those year over year comparisons. Stellantis kind of the outlier with their results down 1%. So kind of interesting to see that, but just to give some context to these numbers, automakers are still working their way back from pre-COVID levels. So just for example, GM, they had a strong quarter, the best among GM, Ford, or Stellantis, and they delivered about 675,000 vehicles in the United States this quarter. So that's up 21% year over year. But if we go back to 2019, same thing, sales release here, that was actually 738,000 vehicles in that third quarter prior to COVID and the impacts that has had on inventory and supply chain, et cetera, since that period of time. So let me find my notes here. This is actually for GM, a 9% decrease still from where they were at in that quarter, same comparable quarter back in 2019 pre-COVID. Now, if we look at Fiat Chrysler, obviously they didn't have Stellantis, Fiat Chrysler, they didn't have as strong of a quarter this quarter, but 380,000 vehicles delivered in the third quarter, doing the same thing back to 2019. We can see, looks like I may have forgotten to highlight it here, but they had about 565,000 vehicles sold in that quarter. So for Stellantis, that's a 33% drop from 2019. And then for Ford, relatively similar. If we look at them, I guess kind of in between GM and Stellantis, they're actually down 14% from 2019. So I know a lot of people will see, the strong numbers, and it makes the auto market definitely look strong, despite what we've heard about high interest rates and things like that. But we have to remember the context of inventory and where the automotive market has been prior to this. That is sort of the base that these numbers are coming on top of. So important to keep that in mind. And obviously Tesla's navigated probably more deftly through that than these other automakers have. So obviously Tesla ramping and things like that, but just something to keep in mind. And then kind of interestingly, Ford on their EVs, their EV sales were up 15% year over year to their best ever sales figure of just about 21,000 vehicles. Again, important context to keep in mind relative to Tesla's numbers, but they're getting some criticism on the Ford F-150 Lightning numbers. So if we go back to, or if we take a look at those specifically, only about 3,500 F-150 Lightnings sold this quarter, down 46% year over year from roughly 6,500 in Q3 last year. So again, putting some context around that, or I guess without context, that looks like a very, very bad result. But we have to remember that Ford in August announced that they had restarted production on Ford F-150. Obviously, after restarting production, that's going to take some time to ramp probably as well. But production was actually down for 6 weeks during the quarter. So basically half the quarter of no production there for the F-150 Lightning, plus any ramp period after that. Obviously, we just talked yesterday about the reports that Ford had canceled some dealer orders as they continue to seemingly work through some production issues. So whether or not that's production related or demand related, we'll leave, that's up to people to kind of prognosticate on. But it is just important to remember that they were shut down for half of that quarter. We had seen previous, sort of quarters like this for the Mustang Mach-E. So if we look at the sales figures for the Mustang Mach-E, there was a lot of similar criticism on that program early this year, as there was, downtime, and then obviously the significant Model Y price cuts seemingly putting a lot of pressure on the Mustang Mach-E. But this quarter was the strongest quarter ever for the Mustang Mach-E in the US, at just under 15,000 vehicles sold. So you could levy the same criticisms against the Mustang Mach-E that you could make for the Ford F-150 Lightning right now. But I do think the F-150 Lightning will bounce back, and Ford did say in the release that they expect to produce sales increases in Q4 relative to obviously the 46% drop that they saw in Q3. So we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, it is interesting, especially with the introduction of the Cybertruck, with Rivian ramping up production and things like that. Not to say that they're home free or anything like that, but again, just want to provide that context. Sometimes that is missing. Now, the other thing that was interesting from the Ford release, they also updated on Blue Cruise, saying that they have now surpassed 125 million cumulative hands-free miles, a 33% increase since the end of Q2. That puts the end of Q2 at about 95 million. So roughly 30 million miles added over the last quarter. Now, obviously, this isn't fair to compare directly with FSD beta. This is just highway. So it's probably more comparable to autopilot for Tesla. Obviously some differences there too, but just to, again, add some context around that, if we go back to Tesla's, I know I'm probably covering that a bit. If we go back to Tesla's Q2 earnings report, we can see cumulative miles driven with FSD beta. And in Q2, it looked like they added about, let's see in my notes, 175 million miles just in that quarter. And obviously we've seen Tesla continue to expand, plus deliver a lot more vehicles. So when we see this published for Q3, probably going to be, again, somewhere up here, right around there. So obviously we'll keep an eye on it. But again, Tesla adding miles on a much more difficult, sort of program than Blue Cruise at a much faster rate, which is interesting despite the differences in terms of the comparison here. All right, the other just quick sales figure I wanted to point out, BYD. So for the third quarter, they've delivered, subset of their total deliveries, but for their battery electric vehicles specifically, they've continued to see pretty strong growth here, again, despite some of the pricing action that Tesla has taken, delivering about 430,000 vehicles in battery electric vehicles in the third quarter this year. Obviously, that's just about 3,500 vehicles or so, 4,000 vehicles or so below Tesla's numbers for the third quarter. So, if this trajectory were to continue, obviously Tesla had some downtime and things like that, but BYD kind of closing that gap. Not necessarily in terms of profit or profitability, and obviously major differences between the two, but still interesting to keep an eye on BYD, specifically the subset that is their BEVs. So we'll continue to watch that, but wanted to pass that update along as well while we're going through the sales figures. All right, next we've got some interesting updates on Giga Nevada. So this is from Zangler, who has been keeping a close eye on the expansion plans there in the Tesla Semi program. He is saying that on October 1st, Tesla held an employee meeting, and at the meeting, they announced that the expansion design, the design plans for the expansion had been locked in, and those plans were shared with employees at that time. So it's been a while since we've heard about Tesla announcing the expansion. Obviously, this will be for 4680s and for semi-production, but it sounds like that is now, set to commence and is sort of, the plan is laid forth and ready to go. So an exciting update there on Giga Nevada after a little bit of a period of lack of an update. And then just a few other quick things here. So Drive Tesla Canada today is reporting that Tesla is going to begin, or actually has already started to ship cars to, ship Model 3s specifically to Canada from Fremont. Obviously, this used to be the case. Tesla then, maybe a quarter or two ago, converted this over to ship from Shanghai. But with the Model 3 Highland update in Shanghai, I think right now, obviously, it makes a lot of sense for them to then flip back to Fremont production to fulfill Canada. So not something that I find surprising, but maybe interesting in terms of Tesla's allocation and export strategy, and should, help support Canada during this period while obviously Model 3 production in Shanghai is going to be prioritized for China locally and export to Europe. Speaking of the Highland Model 3, Tesla Hong Kong posting on X that people should stay tuned because there's going to be an update on Model 3 for the upgraded Model 3 on October 12th, so a little over a week from today. Presumably this will, I would guess would mark some arrivals of maybe some shipments of the updated Model 3, and maybe they'll hold an event just kind of showing that off. That would be my best guess for what this is, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And then a couple of interesting updates on the referral program today. If you've been following it closely, there's been Tesla had removed a number of different prizes in the referral program. They've then added a lot of those back. And now they've added FSD as well. So for 120,000 credits, you can now purchase FSD as a software option. So similarly to how Tesla offers the acceleration boost, you can now add, the full self-driving option as well through the referral program. Now, obviously that's a lot of credits, but still an interesting add in terms of the referral program, and obviously very high value for someone that would be willing to maybe otherwise buy it. So interesting to see that, and I would imagine that that's a pretty strong incentive for people that may be able to get to that number of credits. Quick safety update, Tesla North America posting that they've pushed a over-the-air software update to all US Model 3 and Model Y, as well as S and X 2020 and newer, to increase the frequency of the flashing for hazards if the airbag has been deployed. So the Tesla vehicle will automatically detect that has happened, which I think has always been the case. It'll turn the hazards on. I think the update here is that the flashing will now happen faster, and we'll wrap up with that story since obviously we've got the video of that playing there, and that's maybe mildly annoying. Another quick update, apparently on the Tesla app, Model 3 performance orders that were made previously but had not yet been delivered. Obviously now we've got the update. They are now showing expected delivery in 2024, sometime between April to July. So we're still kind of waiting to hear details on the Highland Performance Model 3. It sounds like something like that is going to be coming just from some of the information we've seen. And hopefully this is a good sign that is still on the docket as well. All right, last couple of things non-Tesla, but the Kia is having what they're calling an EV Day. So this will also be on October 12th. They plan to announce 2 new concept EVs, as well as the detailed specifications of the Kia EV5. And they say that this is going to become an annual tradition. So like Tesla with their battery days and things like that, looks like Kia now doing an EV Day that they plan to do each year. So we'll keep an eye out for updates from that next week. And then Rivian has announced that they are going to be, sorry, this is out of order there, but Rivian has announced that they're going to be raising convertible bonds worth about $1.5 billion. So this is after they raised about $1.3 billion in March this year. So going back and raising some more capital, I had this up because it was kind of interesting. About a month ago, RJ Scaringe said that they would not need to raise more capital until 2025. Obviously, not needing to raise capital doesn't exclude you from the possibility of doing it. And that's what we're seeing now. And I think we've actually seen Tesla kind of say that they don't need to raise capital before, and then they are. And usually you want to raise capital before you need it. You can get better terms at that point in time. But Rivian said that the purpose of the offering, similar to the raise earlier this year, is to de-risk the launch of their second generation R2 in Georgia. So I don't think too surprising Rivian had worked down below 10 billion in cash this last quarter. I think they probably want to keep it somewhere around there as they head into the R2 generation. So, we'll see how long they go sort of on these couple of equity raises. But obviously, if they're burning roughly $1 billion a quarter, I think even a little bit more than that, then yeah, you're going to want to take a little bit of risk off the table because you really need to get to R2. And obviously, R2 is going to burn a lot of capital as well. So we'll see what they continue to do, but obviously the stock down a bit today on that news. And then the last thing for today, just another picture from Sean Doherty of the Cybertruck at the SpaceX facility, which I think is just a great image for today. We didn't quite get that one in there yesterday, so wanted to pull that up for the end of the episode today. All right, that'll wrap it up for today. So as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on X at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, October 5th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.